Hello, everyone. This is Armando Perez-Carreno, and today we're joined by Hans Skillrud from Termageddon, and I hope I said that right.
You
Welcome,
nailed it.
Hans.
Thank you. Thank you, Armando. You nailed it.
I'm glad to hear it. So, Hans, talk a bit about yourself and what is Termageddon so people know where we're coming from, and then we'll get into the fun of things.
Absolutely. So, my name is Hans. I'm one of the co-founders of Termageddon. Termageddon is an auto-updating website policy solution. Business owners of all shapes and sizes come to Termageddon to help them make disclosures required under the privacy laws that apply to them and leverage Termageddon to keep those policies up to date over time. My background, I ran a web design and software development business for how long? 8 years, but built up a nice team. But I sold that business in 2020, and because Termageddon was kind of taking off, and yeah, I run the company with my wife. She's the privacy attorney. I'm just the techie person who's always in the background. Yeah, I'm really excited about today's conversation. I think there's some really timely pieces of education I think that can be provided today. Before I move any further, though, I'm thinking about my wife. I do want to note, please note this is not legal advice. Everything I share today is for informational purposes only.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Hans. So let's dive right in. How did you, from that other business, how did you get into building Termageddon? How did that need arise? And how did you decide to build a tool like this?
For sure. So, when building a bunch of client websites, there's so much that goes into a website, as we both know. There's SEO, there's design, there's maintenance, hosting, everything, security, everything. Well, policies have always been there as well, but they've always kind of been put at the back burner. It's kind of like the last thing you think about before you launch a website. And my clients would always say, hey, what should I do for my website policies? Like the day we're going to launch the website. And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm not your attorney. I'm not an attorney at all. Why are you asking me? And then that conversation got kind of awkward, and then it ultimately usually resulted in them just copying a legal document from someone else's website and asking me to paste it on their website. And I'd always do it because I wanted to launch the website and get paid and move on to my next project. It never felt right. It never felt professional. It always was awkward. That was really the fuel to my fire. The only thing that was unique to me was that I happened to be dating a privacy attorney at the time, who's now my wife. And she came from a place where, she was having to charge more and more and more to draft policies because there's so many privacy laws in this day and age. And so her price point was getting so high that small business owners couldn't afford it. So we put our two heads together and built Termageddon. So we're not a legal service provider, rather we're a tool. And that is what allows us to be a little bit more accessible to small business owners, so that they can get comprehensive policies set up for their own business without having to worry about, is it okay to be copying legal documents from other websites? And really the benefit of Termageddon is the fact that we automatically will update their policies whenever the laws change. So, it's not just a means to get policies that help comply with today's privacy laws, but more so a strategy to keeping up to date with things over time.
Oh, that's excellent. That's a wonderful way to get into something. I was talking with my wife the other day precisely about something like that. That scenario where you're getting asked for a service, a sort of on-demand, personalized service, and it just keeps getting more expensive and inaccessible for other people. And then how can you productivize that? And what you did is fantastic because you're helping small business owners be able to get this into their sites, into their tools, without having to incur a heavy expense. Also, as an aside, as a small business owner, you're sometimes scared of lawyers and attorneys. You don't want to book a call because it might be too expensive. You don't know what to expect. Are they going to give you the right things? Are you going to go into a hole where it's like you're never ending? You don't know, right? But this is not the truth, but it's one of the perspectives that you sometimes get from small business. So having this tool just allows us to use it and get all these benefits. That's great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is Termageddon? I know we briefly described it at the beginning, but just in a few words, if someone has a website, why would they use a tool like Termageddon?
Yeah. So privacy laws exist. and there's more privacy laws coming. And privacy laws protect people's data. So someone's name, their email address, their phone number, often collected through contact forms of websites, even someone's IP address, which is often collected behind the scenes of a website. This personal information is what is regulated under privacy laws. That's what privacy laws are all about, protecting people's personal information. Well, we as website owners collect personal information to run our business. We need people to submit inquiries, to get leads. We need people to place orders to grow our revenue. And so when we as website owners collect personal information, we need to be thinking to ourselves, privacy laws may start applying to me. And so therein lies a challenge, and this is like a fundamental concept of privacy, which is that privacy laws protect people. They don't care where your business is located. So what you as a website owner need to do, you need to find out what laws apply to you. Whose data are you collecting? Where are they located? And what privacy laws protect them? Because it doesn't matter where we're located. What matters is whose data are we collecting, and do those privacy laws apply to us? Does that kind of help explain?
Yeah, and it brings up an important point that maybe I'm a small business owner in Texas and I look for the rules for Texas and I try to follow those. But it turns out California has stricter rules, and it turns out most of my customers are in California. Maybe it's not the case, but if that were to happen, then I'm liable for those privacy laws, not the ones from where I'm located, right?
That's right. Yeah. California coincidentally has 3 privacy laws. So actually up to 3 laws can apply to you. One applies the moment you collect a single piece of personal information, like someone visits your website and you use reCAPTCHA to collect their IP address to make sure they're not a bad actor. Now CalOPA applies. If you use a third-party technology like Facebook Pixel, for example, your SIPA can apply to you. And then California also has a third privacy law, which tends to only apply to bigger businesses, but if you have like 25 million or more in revenue. And then there's several other factors, but something as simple as that. And California's third privacy law, CPRA, previously known as CCPA, can apply to you. So not only can people be protected under one privacy law, they can be protected under multiple privacy laws, to which you may need to comply with some or all of them. So isn't that just fun?
Oh, yeah, dandy. What? Well, and plus other countries.
Yes. Yeah. And, just go north a little bit and you're in Canada, where PIPEDA can apply. And if you're collecting data from Quebec residents, it's not just PIPEDA, but it's also Quebec Law 25. So yeah, and therein lies kind of the gravity of the situation, where it's like, wait, my website's available for anyone anywhere. Like, what does that mean? It was like, well, it means a lot of laws could apply to you. And I think it's always good to step back at that moment of fear and just remember, there's companies out there that are trying to help people in these situations. And I believe a good tool like Termageddon can help you, identify these laws that apply, help make the disclosures required under each specific applicable law, provide features where you can even share the license with your attorney if you want to, where they can even review your policies and customize them if they need to. And if I just so may, being married to an attorney, I can confirm attorneys are just human beings. They are real people. They have real feelings. They're real people. And so don't be afraid to talk to an attorney. And if you ever get uncomfortable with an initial call, don't work with them. Find someone else. There are great attorneys out there in this world. I can confirm I at least know one.
That's so funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I don't know if you recall a while back, the first time I interacted with Termageddon, I was searching for tools. There are many out there that provide this sort of functionality that allows you to put up privacy policy or terms, and we'll talk about those in a bit. But I always feel them to be sort of an entity somewhere, and there's no one to talk to really except maybe support staff. And I just never felt comfortable dealing with any of them until I heard about Termageddon through WesBoss and Syntax. And I sent a tweet and I saw you were interacting, and I was like, whoa, they're real human beings behind this. And you said something in an email like, yes, I'm a real human. And it was so funny because that's the thing. There are a lot of these software businesses. There's no connection from the public to the people behind it.
Yeah.
And at least from my perspective. So it's funny that you touched on that right now.
I think I completely agree with that outlook. You know, coming from web design and software development, I've interacted with nice coffee mug.
Oh,
Anyone listening, Armando just brought out his Termageddon coffee mug, which is awesome.
I did. It says cookies, no. Coffee, yes. Privacy, yes.
Awesome.
And so thanks by the way. It's part of my daily rotation. I love it because it's the right size. It fits my coffee well, and I use it all the time. Funnily enough, I did not choose it for the call. It was literally the one I grabbed.
Just
today.
Coincidence? Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, and you know, with privacy, I feel like it's such a overwhelming concept that like. And just for who we are as people, like we want to have relationships with people. And that's really a big core part of our business is working with agencies and providing as much education as possible because, well, I'm sure we're going to get into it later today, but you know, when one person, small business owners get sued $50,000 for noncompliance with the privacy law, that is not a fun day for anyone involved. And so, yeah, we're going to make ourselves as available as possible. That is for sure. We're extremely motivated to just provide education, not really push Termageddon. We'd rather just provide education and let people just like understand what's going on and give them the insights on what they can do about it. That is what matters most to us.
I appreciate that. I think I can say from the community, thank you for providing that sort of information. And we'll get to where people can find some of this information, which I know from filling out questionnaires that sometimes it links to documentation where there's a ton of information where what everything means. And I do want people to know about that as well. But before we do, you touched on a very important point right now, which is small businesses being sued for privacy issues. Can you touch on that? What does this mean for a small business owner that maybe thinks that all this just applies to larger enterprises?
Yeah, get that all the time. We hear that all the time about, hey, yeah, well, I'm just a small fish. I don't really, I don't, cause any issues. I just have a website and, only big businesses get in trouble. And I think that is a fault of just media coverage, which let's be real. It's always interesting to hear when some big company gets fined $4 billion for privacy noncompliance. That's what captures the news articles. Unfortunately, what doesn't get covered are small business owners that get fined or even sued for noncompliance. And I'll give you an example. At the time of this recording, over the last 6 weeks, I've had conversations with 6 different web designers whose non-Termageddon clients are being sued anywhere between 30 and 60K because one of they received a demand letter from a law firm in California. Even though some of them were in California, others were not. They got a demand letter saying, "Hey, I visited your website and you are using a third-party tool, and I did not consent to that, and I am suing you now for damages." And no one is talking about this. It's absolutely, I shouldn't say that. Lawyers are talking about it, but not anyone, no one's talking about it in the tech industry. And the implications of this are big, but what's happening here is we have one-person website owners, in particular, I'm only aware of US-based business owners, for what it's worth, at this moment in time at least, receiving demand letters where they said you are in non-compliance with CIPA, the California Invasion of Privacy Act, and we're suing, and we're going to take you to court. And then people, freak out, and they ask their web designer, "What the heck? What did you do?" And they start blaming other people, and it's a really difficult situation. And so far, a lot of them have settled. One person just this week, the person I spoke to about it this week, he said he's fighting it. I don't know how long, if he's going to or not, but this is all expensive. If you settle, it's expensive. If you hire an attorney to defend it, it's expensive. And it's just like, if people could just embrace privacy before it becomes an issue for them, like, well done. You've respected your privacy rights of your website visitors, and you've prevented these lawsuits from happening in the first place, or these demand letters at least happening in the first place. So yeah, I can absolutely confirm. I know from direct experience of small business owners being fined or sued. And you know what? I'll even throw this out at the time of this recording. Let's see what happens in 1 to 2 years. I'm guessing this will become much more of a household name. Keep an eye out for CIPA lawsuits. I think more are coming.
That's terrifying.
Yeah,
I know at least from a business owner's standpoint, it's not only the monetary aspect of it. Say you get sued for $30,000, $50,000. Like we were talking about earlier, maybe some of these companies maybe don't even make that amount in their e-commerce. Maybe it's a side project. Maybe that's what it's doing because it's growing. It's a new business.
Yep.
where are they going to get the money for it? So they freak out. And the freak out can be a bigger problem than the lawsuit. So, and then the lawyers have to also think about this, what they're doing to these people, because you freeze in a moment like this where you suddenly owe more than you can potentially generate in
Yeah.
your mind.
Yeah.
You freak out and you stop doing anything. Well, you can. Some people work better in this manner, but it's a problem psychologically because you don't know what to do. You stop being efficient. So maybe those next 3-4 days, you're down. You're not producing. You're not doing things properly, and this will affect your performance. It will affect your relationship with customers. It might affect your relationship with your family, and so it goes further than just that monetary problem.
You start questioning like, oh, should I even have a website? Wait, what if I don't even have a website? How will I even grow? The stress that I've directly experienced from some of these customers I've spoken with, or non-Termageddon customers that I've spoken with. I'm always very careful about that phrase because I want to, but it's haunting. I hate it because I can see myself in their shoes. As a former agency owner who built websites all the time, I would implement third-party stuff into websites just because, that's what everyone does. Like that's what keeps costs down when building a website is by leveraging third-party technologies. And now all of a sudden, Californians have this ability to sue people for not getting proper consent to using them. And that's such a foreign concept to so many website owners. I'm sure there's people listening right now being like, what? Consent to third-party scripts, which we'll talk about in more detail here. But yeah, it's mind-blowing. So, that's why I'm here. I want to tell as many people willing to listen. Anyone who's willing to listen about privacy, I already, my hat's off to you, because I know it's a little bit more of a dry topic, but this stuff is important to the mental and financial health of any business owner, I think. So
it is, and just off the bat, because you just launch and you could have a problem launch day, right? Because at that moment people are on the website, and maybe even more people, because maybe on launch day you had thousands of visitors because you had some press. And so that's even worse. And so speaking of consent, so what a lot of websites, as we all know and dislike, see, we go to every website and now there's a little thing that says, we have cookies. Click accept. And we have cookies. We're doing... So now practically all websites just have that as a blanket thing. And so it's just bothersome to people from one perspective. But do they actually do something? Are people actually consenting? Is the website actually doing the right thing by just showing that? Or does the action actually need to do something behind the scenes for it to be valid?
So long story short, it is the latter thing. A properly working cookie consent banner, otherwise known as a cookie pop-up consent banner. There's a lot of phrases here. We all know them and we all love them. I'm sure everyone listening right now is like, oh, I love cookie banners. And this is a form of consent. And look, I get it. Cookie consents are not everyone's favorite thing. Like, I'm not going to deny that fact. That is reality. I also think, though, that a lot of people don't realize what a proper cookie consent does. A cookie consent is actually respecting your privacy rights. It is a properly built cookie consent is blocking third-party technologies, for example, from taking your data the moment you visit a website and then sharing that data with third parties who then harvest that data and sell it to advertisers. Like, a properly working cookie consent is actually an effort to respect your privacy rights. And I think I just always want to remind everyone, when you visit a website and you see a properly working cookie consent, you should have that, just a small part of you at least, who's like, I can appreciate that. These people have taken the time to try and respect my privacy rights. So it's good to note that. And so a cookie consent banner, the purpose of one is to ensure that your website is not using non-essential cookies. And I know that's kind of an abstract word, which we can get into, but I'll keep it a little bit much more simple. There's first-party and third-party cookies. The ones that really get attention, at least right now, especially in the U.S., because of these SIPA lawsuits, are third-party tracking technologies. And so a good cookie consent banner will block those third-party scripts from loading in the first place. And only after a user gives what's called an explicit action, meaning they've taken an action and clicked accept or accept all, allowing these third-party technologies to run, that is what gives website owners a timestamp, the moment someone consented to their data being shared with third parties and they had full knowledge of it. So when you see a cookie banner that says, hey, we use cookies, deal with it, and you just have a giant OK button, that is non-compliant with every single cookie law that requires a cookie consent solution. To add to a little bit of complexity here, there's also different types of cookie consents based on what laws apply. So, I mean, it couldn't be more fun enough, right? You not only need a cookie consent, you need a different one based on which laws apply to you. And that brings me back to, it all comes back to finding out what laws apply to you, because only then can you determine the disclosures you need to make in your policies and the type of consent banner you need for your website. But yeah, getting consent first, prior to tracking people, prior to implementing technologies onto their browsers that track them or do things for non-essential purposes, is why these cookie consents exist. And I also want to note the word consent is important here, because this is also why when someone's typing in their contact information through a contact form, why there's checkboxes that say, I agree to the privacy policy, where the checkbox is unselected by default, but a required field. That is a form of consent as well. That is the moment you get a timestamp, they consented to having their data be collected by you and often shared by you as well. So does that kind of help with answering that?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And there's an additional part of it, which is, well, this might make sense. Okay, there's third-party cookies and there's first-party cookies. For those non-technical, first-party just means that maybe your website needs cookies in order to function because you need to store their session or anything like that, their favorites or whatever your website does, maybe their shopping cart, etc. That, from what I understand, is fine because it stays within your website and it's part of the website. What these privacy laws are fighting against is that you grab their data and instead of just using it for your own functional purposes, you share them with a third party for whatever reason. It might not even be a nefarious reason of selling data. It might just be that you need it in order to use analytics, or you need it in order to give customer support, etc. So there are very genuine reasons why you use third-party cookies, and the privacy laws just state need you to state the purpose of you sending that data over, even if it's for an essential purpose, or if it's for a functional purpose, or whatever, marketing, yeah, etc. And so I think a big issue here is, okay, maybe we understand that, but from my point of view, a few years ago, I would say, okay, great. I really want to help my customers' privacy issues be handled from the beginning. Which cookie consent tool can I use? How do I implement it on a website? And then you have to step back and say, oh no, if I'm doing things right, the thing has to stop scripts from running. How am I gonna do a little pop-up thing that will decide not to run Google Analytics or not to run reCAPTCHA or not to run whatever? This is gonna break my site. How is it gonna work? Where I'm gonna store the consent? And so it is all very complicated, even from a technical standpoint.
It is.
So I was really surprised. I've been using Termageddon for a while, but there was one thing I didn't know it actually did. So I know we're capturing consent, right? There's this, for those who don't know Termageddon, there's a user-centrics part of the cookie consent package that the Termageddon offers. And so you have your little pop-up. And like Hans said, it looks very nice because it tells you this site uses cookies, blah, 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 in the right language. And it actually has like functional and what are the other options?
Functional, essential, and then marketing.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have those tabs and you can check them. You can say accept all, right? So it looks very professional. So you just put this in your website and it looks great. And so at some point I thought, great. So I'm compliant. I have everything I need. People can choose to accept some of those or all of them. And that's great. And that solves it. But then I was installing a new plugin on a site, specifically a calendar plugin that coincidentally has a Google Maps aspect to it because events typically can have maps. And so I'm running it on the staging environment and I'm testing everything and the map doesn't run. And it says, a little pop-up comes up to the development site and it says, you cannot see this because you have not opted, given consent to receive this. And I'm like, whoa. So it actually, just because I'm adding a new tool that I didn't fill out in the questionnaire when setting this up, it is going as far as blocking those scripts for me because maybe I, as a developer, made a mistake and didn't include it in the consent form. So this is great. Can you talk a little bit more about the user-centric part of it and how that works for someone who installs a tool like Termageddon?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I want to note real quick. So, first-party cookies, yes, correct. The vast majority of first-party cookies are essential. Like they just need to work to log into a website or to otherwise, if you didn't have first-party cookies, like if you went to Amazon, every single page you visit, you would have to re-log in every single page you click, every link you click, So the vast majority of first-party cookies are indeed essential. There are some non-essential ones, but really, I think, at least right now, the big stickler is the third-party cookies. And just like you said, cookies are not a bad thing. They're a great thing. They help people use a website. They help website owners understand how people use a website. They help secure a website. So cookies are not a bad thing. It's just that there's some regulations that require us to disclose what cookies we use and get consent for some of them that aren't truly necessary to the website working. And the way user-centrics works is it is focused on blocking third-party scripts from loading in the first place. And I love that backdoor feature where if you add a technology to the site and you're not sitting there thinking, oh, I should update my privacy policy, which, let's be real, the average small business owner is not there yet. I love that backdoor protection where they just block all third-party scripts and then give you like a little blurb that says, hey, you need to go into your Termageddon account and add in those third-party services. So User-Centrics is a European-based consent provider. With us being US-based, we partnered with them. That is a long-winded story I'm more than happy to get into. It has to deal with data transfer laws and all that stuff, but long story short, they're called User-Centrics. They process about 60 billion consents every single month. They're a massive CMP, consent management provider. And yeah, we partnered up with them to provide a consent solution to our customers. And what's cool about Termageddon is that, when you go through our privacy policy questionnaire, our tool figures out what laws apply to you. So our tool figures out if you need a cookie consent solution, and if you do, what type of cookie consent solution you need. I see so many people. I see like companies that clearly CPRA would not apply to them. Maybe they're a brand new business with zero revenue and they think they need to comply with CPRA because some website said you do, when in reality you don't. You're tiny and that law is just too big to apply to you. So that's why I'm a big believer in step one, find out the laws that apply to you, because that gives step two, it makes it super easy. Get all the disclosures required under those applicable laws, provide the consent frameworks that you need to your website visitors. So.
That's great. Yeah, I really found that very good. The questionnaire itself is very easy to use as well. It's long.
It's long.
But it needs to be long because of what you just said. So for people listening, if you've ever done your own taxes, for example, yes, you could go to the IRS in the United States and you could read all the instructions for the form. And you might figure it out. And you might fill out your form correctly. Maybe. Or you can use a tool. There's many out there. I won't name them. But there's many tools out there that allow you to fill out a questionnaire that takes you step by step in language regular people can understand. And then it fills out the form for you. So in this case, the questionnaire is great because although it's long, it will allow you to, at the end, know if you need to use certain things, if certain privacy laws apply, blah, 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 right? And then also it asks you the specific services, which we covered earlier. What third-party tools are you using? And even for your first-party stuff, what are you doing with the data? What data are you gathering? What's the purpose of each field that you're gathering? And sometimes, at least in my perspective, when I was looking through it, you're filling it out and it asks you, why are you using this information? And you have to fill it out for each field: name, last name, IP address, credit card information, etc. And sometimes it helps you to step back and see, oh, okay, so maybe I don't really need this. Maybe I'll take that off my form, or
That's
maybe
awesome.
I will stop sending that to Google. I don't need to send it to Google because it just makes it look like I'm sending a lot of data. Because remember, people, once you do this, it gives you a very detailed privacy policy which states everything that you're capturing and why, so that you're compliant. So that means everyone can see exactly what you're capturing, which is a good thing. But if you yourself feel at looking at your policy, wow, it looks like I'm capturing a ton of data, maybe you don't need all of that data.
I love it. I love that mindset. And that, that leads into what's called data minimization, which is a wonderful privacy practice. Collect what is only necessary to run your business. Don't, and I such a good example. Do you really need to ask people's birthday to send them an automated birthday email? Like, do you really need to do it? And so it's moments like that where it's like, okay, now I have to I collect your age, and it's for what, marketing? Is that really necessary for whatever business you're in? And maybe it is. Of course, maybe it is for certain businesses. But therein lies, like, I'm just so happy that was your experience going through it, because you're right. For the questionnaire you went through, you had to go through a much more extensive set of questions. Sometimes the questions aren't on a personal information basis. It just depends what laws apply. But yeah, you had to go through one of the more difficult ones our tool provides, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You walked away with comprehensive policies, but I just love the fact that your takeaway was, oh, maybe I should reduce the amount of data I collect, because I think that's the future of thinking about how do we run websites. We should be all about collecting as little data about our users as possible, not as much. And I get it. I'm coming from a privacy compliance standpoint. I'm sure everyone in marketing right now is like, I hate this person. Like, I want as much user data as possible. And I get it. Of course I get it. I respect that goal. Just know that there's regulations that are going to be combative with that outlook, I guess. It's at least something to acknowledge. So.
Yes. And for the marketing people, I've been in the marketing space as well for a long time. I've written a couple of books, trained thousands of people on Facebook advertising through the years. It's a fun practice. It's great to have all the data that you can to do targeting, detailed targeting, and have a good idea of who the customer is. But remember, at the end of the day, if you're capturing their birth date, for example, more than likely, you're not storing it yourself on your server and using your server to send that email. You might, probably if you're a bigger enterprise, not that likely if you're a small business, you're probably using ActiveCampaign or Drip or whatever tool you want to send out that email, which means you're sending that person's name, last name, address, birth date to a third party that you no longer control. So if that third party has a leak, then it's a problem. And so keep those types of things in mind. Just think about your data and whether you'd like another company to move your data around, because we see so many leaks out there. It's not like rare that a company gets hacked and data gets leaked. And I don't know what you think of this, Hans, but most of the things we hear about hacks, it's not like, oh, they took over the site and defamed it, or they modified the functionality, or they stole a bunch. No, most of the time it's a data breach. It's nothing happened to the site, everything works fine, but they took information from 1 billion customers. And so, like, what? 100%. It's worse.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I boy, it's music to my ears hearing you talk this way, because usually when we get interviewed, it's I have to go through just some basics here, but you're philosophically addressing this, and I think that's just so important that we understand that when we're collecting and sharing data with third parties. So many business owners I don't share data, whereas sharing data is quite common. Perfect example of is sharing an email address of your subscriber with ActiveCampaign, and it's not a bad thing. I always say that it's not a bad thing, but is it a disclosure requirement under a ton of privacy laws? Absolutely. You need to acknowledge that. So, and that's why I love privacy laws. And I always say that I'm not fighting against privacy laws. I actually believe in privacy rights for everyone. And I think just about everyone feels that way too. What's certainly unfortunate is the demand letters that these business owners are getting, and the consequences of not complying. But in my mind, okay, now we have two reasons to get on board with this stuff: to respect our privacy, to respect the privacy rights of our website visitors, and also to avoid fines and lawsuits. I mean, that's a win-win in my opinion. So, yeah, it's time to embrace it.
Yes. Speaking of these laws, many of them, which may or may not apply. Let's say I don't use a tool like Termageddon. I do, by the way, but let's say we don't. And I work with my attorney and I build out a very detailed privacy policy, and it costs me a ton of money. Set it up, put it up there. Am I good, or do I need to update it periodically based on the changes of those privacy laws through time?
Yeah, absolutely. So privacy laws change often. I shouldn't say often because that's like a word up for interpretation, but the UK Data Protection Act, for example, is being considered for changes at the moment of this recording. Australia's privacy law, I believe, just changed. That's been around since 1988. And at the time of this recording, next year, we have 4 more U.S. privacy laws, brand new privacy laws going into effect, requiring new disclosures if applicable to your business. So yeah, policies are no longer a static thing. They are going to be an ever-changing component of your business, not just when you change your own privacy practices, like Armando provided a perfect example, implementing Google Maps into a calendar feature. It's not only about when you change features of your website, but it's also about, do new laws or amended laws require me to make change? So, and I'll always say, if you can afford an attorney to draft policies for you, monitor laws, notify your changes, keep those up to date, of course go that route. Nothing beats having an attorney provide you with legal advice. It's just when you don't have those types of funds laying around, a tool that does that can be an excellent plan B, especially a tool that's attorney friendly too. That's always a plus. So yeah, it's, we want to make sure a strategy is in place, and that is a very foreign concept, I think, to a lot of people, and that's just where we're heading though, and that's what I think everyone should embrace.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you have funds for an attorney, or maybe you use a tool like Termageddon. You should be set. What about building a policy with ChatGPT?
So we have a great blog article on this, and so what we did with we tested ChatGPT. We said, write me a privacy policy, and it spit out a privacy policy. It was non-compliant with every single privacy law in existence. We then said, write me a GDPR privacy policy. It was non-compliant with every single privacy law, including GDPR. We then, though, and I will acknowledge this, we then said, write me a privacy policy with the following disclosures. And we listed out 40 disclosures that were that, for this example, were required of the user to comply with GDPR. Not going to lie, it nailed it. It actually did a wonderful job. And I'll admit it, like, I'm happy to admit it. It actually did a wonderful job. We were like, that's impressive. So we take a step back and think about it. Okay, what does that mean? Well, I think the average user does not know which laws apply to them,
right,
let alone which disclosures are required under which laws. So I think that's challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 is, where are the automatic updates? Like, when are you going to be notified when laws change, when new laws impact your business specifically, and what specific new disclosures you need to make? Also, the challenge with ChatGPT. So those are the 2, I would say, core fundamental concerns I would have. And then another just side note, but privacy laws are conditional based. And I'll give you an example. Rhode Island just passed their privacy law, and my wife was just so delighted to hear that she actually has to create 2 different sets of questionnaires, because Rhode Island, based on your revenue size, you'll have one type of disclosure set for privacy policies, or you'll have a different type of disclosure set, all based on your revenue. So ChatGPT is not there yet. I mean, if it can like respond back and be like, okay, well, what's your revenue? How much money do you make every year? How much data do you process on a per state basis? Okay, then it may be competitive with us, and then it would also have to figure out how to auto update your policies over time. But yeah, right now, unfortunately, it's just not there. It's I would argue it's quite concerning. And this reminds me, I'm a part of a social network group where I was talking about SIPA lawsuits, and I said, hey, if you're using, I was sending out a PSA to this group of web designers in particular, and I said, hey, if you use Facebook Pixel to track users but you don't really actually use it anymore. Maybe it's like from an old campaign from years ago, but you still have pixel on your website, you need to remove it because there's a lot of lawsuits right now around that issue. And someone wrote back like, SIPA only applies to websites that use live chat features. And I'm like, well, no. I mean, yes, it could apply to websites using live chat without getting consent first, but that's not accurate. And this person was so confident. And then after a few exchanges, she's like, well, ChatGPT told me this. And then she provided us the message that ChatGPT did. And it was so inaccurate that like I only could pick out like 4 things to itemize, but like everything was wrong, and it looked really good, and it looked deceptively good, but it was just so wrong on so many levels. They referenced a law that didn't exist anymore. They confidently said it is only related to live chat features when it absolutely is not. So yeah, I would be cautious to rely on ChatGPT for legal related items, but I don't think I'm alone in that recommendation.
No, I don't think you are. It looks, that's the problem. So I'm a big fan of LLMs for certain things, completion, drafting. It's a great tool to help you. But when you ask it to get things where it actually needs data, the hallucinations part of it, that means, for those who don't know, that just means sometimes it makes things up, and it'll make up sources and references. And so maybe a tool like Perplexity might be better for that sort of thing, because it goes and grabs sources. But still, for things like this, look for sites that actually have the real information, the references, so that you know which policies apply to you. And then if you want to use it as a tool to draft, maybe it's okay. But you have to first make sure what you actually need to have. And so in that sense, is there somewhere people can go to, let's say they cannot use Termageddon because they cannot pay for it, or their company doesn't allow, whatever. How do people know about all these resources? Where can they find information about what applies to them or what they should answer in a questionnaire?
Yeah, so I would say our blog can be an excellent resource. Like, go to our blog and type in compliance guide, and you'll see every single resource, every single privacy law we cover, which is over a dozen. And you'll be able to see the compliance guides. And the first part of the compliance guides is, who does this law apply to? So you'll be able to, maybe you'll have to open a bunch of these links in a new tab, but you can go down the line that way and figure out which laws apply. And then below, we just say all the disclosures required under each. So, I mean, hey, look, if you're trying to save $120, like, yeah, that could be a route to do it. It might cost you a lot of time, but that could be a good resource. For anyone listening from New Zealand, for what it's worth, New Zealand offers a free privacy policy generator right from the New Zealand government website. Granted, it only covers New Zealand's privacy law, but hey, that's a great thing you can consider doing. If you're a business solely servicing people in New Zealand, that could be excellent for you. So obviously I'm biased, but I'd like to think that our blogs are rather comprehensive with the compliance guide articles specifically that we provide. That could be a great resource.
Thank you. That's a great resource. I frequent it when I'm filling out the questionnaire, because I fill out the questionnaire for different customers, and it has a little information tooltips, and sometimes it takes me to your blog and to your knowledge base, and it's very helpful because that way I can see what each thing means without it being overly cluttered in the actual questionnaire.
So I'll share this with you. I haven't shared this publicly yet, but our new UI, our new interface is just around the corner from being launched. And very soon, our little resource links are not going to open in a new tab. It's going to be embedded into the site, and it's called Termageddon. And it's actually video, like 10-second video recordings of me with the supportive text right below it. So
nice.
I'm so excited to release that, because I feel like it's more accessible. Because I feel like if you have to click a link and it opens in a new tab, that's kind of annoying. So this will stay in page. It'll be like a 10-second video of me explaining how best to answer the questionnaire, and also just supportive text right below it too. So.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to that as well. So Hans, I know we're limited in time here, but where can people find you and Termageddon, and on social, website, etc.? And what would be your recommendation for anyone who's launching a website, or maybe they already have a website?
Yeah, so to reach us, Termageddon, so we're termageddon.com. So it's like Termageddon, so Termageddon.com. Yeah, when I bought that domain, I did not realize how many times I had to say that one out loud, but In the footer is all our social media links. I hang out on Twitter. My wife hangs out on Instagram. So chances are, and our marketing person handles everything on that front. So we're pretty social. Send us an email if you have any questions or just want to ask us anything. We'll probably say, please note this is not legal advice, and then we'll, happy to share free thoughts for you. Sorry, what was in the second question? What was the second part?
Yeah, what do you recommend for anyone jumping into a website, or maybe they already have a website for years?
Yeah, absolutely. So when getting going with a website, hey, I think obviously I'm going to say you need to take privacy into consideration. Of course, I feel that way. But hey, if there's a bright side, you're not coming with 10 years of experience dealing, not respecting privacy rights. In a large sense, you're in a great position because you can start foundationally with keeping privacy in mind. And so don't underestimate the benefit of that. You have the opportunity to start with the ground floor, building your business and respecting people's privacy rights out the gate. I'd actually say congratulations. Like, embrace privacy and you're going to be in a great place.
Excellent. That's great advice. I really appreciate it, Hans. Thank you for joining us on this video today. And to everyone else, make sure to visit Termageddon either on social or on their website. The tool is fantastic, by the way. I use it. I might be biased because I use it, but I've tried other things and it's just very easy to get going with it. And I myself feel secure by using it. So thanks again. Great. And if you like these videos, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.